It's the whole group. They're all coming. Look out, Scoob. There's like 12 of them. Hey, greetings and salutations, ladies, gentlemen, and others. How is it going? It is your fellow Kuro, here with another build video. I know. My first build video in over a year, and of course, it is a Templar. What did you expect? It's me, okay? This is my Ranged Templar that I have been playing since I came back to the game a couple weeks ago, and I gotta say, it is by far my favorite iteration of this build, and I am having a whole lot of fun playing it. This is a Ranged Templar designed for solo and small to medium sized group PvP. You can Zerg on it if you want to, but you're probably not going to be the biggest contributor in your group. Anyway, it's got speed, it's got damage, and it can tank a serious thrashing, all while blasting gamers from halfway across Cyrodiil right in the forehead, proving that Templar is in fact the king of ranged classes in the ESO. Sork wishes it could do what Rangeplar does, and don't even get me started on Sork. That's just pathetic. Call that a ranged class? Anyway, I got plenty of gameplay and clips and proof of concept for the build here that I plan on showing you guys in a future video, but today it's all about the nitty-gritty, the details, the build, and I'm going to show you everything and give you all the information you need to play this build and make it your own. Before we get into that though, I just have one teeny tiny simple little request of you guys, and that would be, if you don't mind, pretty please, with Nightblade tears on top, drop a like on the video for me. That's it. That's all I need. That's all I need from you. Maybe follow me on Twitch, but that's it. I'm done. And with that being said, let's dive on in.
For the queen. Good fight, fellers. I'll see you on the YouTubes.
Alright, guys, let's do this. Before we jump in, I do want to go ahead and address the anime boy in the room. Yes, I will be doing my build videos with my model on screen from now on, because I feel like it adds just a bit of a personal touch, lets me connect with you guys. Some of you might not like it, but I don't care, and if you have a problem, no, I'm kidding. It is what it is. Some people use webcams, I've noticed, in build videos, and it's nice. It adds an extra element. I'm not going to do that. I just won't. So this is what I'm doing instead, and it works for me. Moving past that, we're going to go ahead and dive on in here to the actual build itself. Let's go ahead and buff up a little bit. Look at our important stats. Spell damage, 5,500 on the back, 5,300 on the front. That is going to go up because we do have on another set, which is going to increase our spell damage by another 300. After all the modifiers, we're probably going to have 57-ish on the front and pretty close to 6,000 on the back. That's plenty of spell damage. Go ahead and rebuff again. Looking at our resistances, 30k spell on the back, 27 on the physical, 27 spell front, 24 physical front. They are not huge resistances, but they're pretty damn good because we are in 4 light armor, so it's pretty impressive. It's plenty of armor. More would be nice, but we don't really need it. Looking at our recoveries here, we have 2,200 magical recovery on the front, 2,000 exactly. Flat 2,000, very attractive, very kind of sexy. I like that. On the back, plenty of recovery, 1,000 stamina recovery. Don't need much more than that. I forgot to mention spell crit rate, 30% front and back here. I have slightly less because I'm missing CP passives, but with those, we're at a nice flat 30%. It's plenty. More would be nice again, but it's plenty. It's plenty. 30 is good. We also have just about 9k pen. With CP passives, that's going to be above 9k, and that's a lot. We're going to be having major and minor breach as well for another little under 9k, so we're looking at somewhere between like 15-16k total pen on target, and it's a lot of penetration. So between the high penetration, the respectable spell damage, and one of our sets, we have plenty of damage, so do not be afraid of that. When it comes to our attributes, I would say this really comes down to personal preference these days. Make sure you have a solid stamina pool. 16,000 is usually like about where I will stop. Like, no, that's the minimum for me. So 16,000, very strong. You can have more if you want it. Health is the big one to pay attention to. I'd say no less than 30k. You could go less. Sometimes I play with less, like 28k, just to pump more magicka for the sake of of damage and healing. Really up to you. There's a lot of damage this patch, and having the extra health really helps to mitigate some of that. Just remember, the more you put into health and the less you have in magicka, the more you're going to lose out on sustain, damage, and healing. But the health might just be worth it. Really up to you, so play around with these until you are comfortable. For my race, I am an orc because I like to go fast. Yes, I am ugly, but I'm fast, so I can run away from all the people that are trying to bully me about my silly looking teeth. It's nice. I never thought in the past that I would be an orc on a Magic Templar, but after all the hybridization stuff, it doesn't matter anymore. So it lends to the playstyle very nicely, because we're not a Sork, we can't streak, we're not a Nightblade, we cannot use shade or go invisible. So speed is key. We need the speed to get away from people that want to hurt us. Run away from the bad people like I run away from my problems. If you don't want to be an orc for any reason, be it that they're ugly, you don't have any race in the alliance, and you don't want to be on blue, then there's some other choices. Anything that gives us spell damage is nice. So Dark Elf, High Elf, both of those, super strong choices. Could even go Khajiit if you like critical. You know, you could try to build a little bit of extra crit on this in a lot of different ways. It's not the best on this probably, but it could work. So if you're a cat already and you don't want to change, you don't have to. And lastly, I'd say Breton will be really good. A lot of sustain on Breton and some extra spell resistance, so you can be just a little beefier. So yeah, those are all options that you can choose if you want, but I like Orc. We are a vampire, stage 3, because of the defensive passive that gives, making us tankier the lower our health gets, and that's very, very nice. You could go stage 4 if you like to turn invisible, but there are some side effects to that I don't like. And I'm using the Atronach, because in my opinion on this build we have enough damage that getting the extra sustain is more beneficial. This allows us to be more aggressive with our offense, having to stop to heavy attack less often, and it helps us keep our resources at a higher value when we're on the defense. And we'll talk about food later. Looking now at the sets. The sets have not changed since my last build video on my Ranged Templar, because I'm very, very comfortable with this setup and it still works great, but I have, of course, updated and changed some small things here and there to accommodate for patch changes. First and foremost being I've changed from an Inferno staff to a Lightning staff. Now I haven't played for the past year, so I don't know when they changed the staff passives around, but I will tell you that nobody told me they changed them for like a week when I came back, so I was still using an Inferno staff looking like an absolute dumbass. So to everyone who was in my streams and didn't say anything to me, fuck you. I still love you, but fuck you. Yeah. So, if you don't know what Draugr does, it is a very, very solid damage set, especially with setups like the ones we are using. It gives us maximum magicka, some offensive penetration, a little bit of recovery, a bit of a wasted front bar stat there, but I mean, who's going to say no to recovery? And it increases our damage done by 330 and reduces our healing taken by 10%. Now, to some people, that might sound just really bad. 330 does not sound like a lot of damage, but let me explain the way this set works. This set adds a flat 330 damage to every instance of damage that you do pre-modifiers. So that is pre any damage percentage increase that you have. So that's a lot. I don't know if you're aware of that, but that is quite a lot. It's going to help you tremendously, okay? Because this is going to buff up to somewhere around 400 per instance of damage, and when you keep in mind that this build is going to have a lot of instances of damage, it's going to add up really fast, and you're going to watch a lot of people whittle away into tiny little piles of ash that you get to laugh at and dance on top of after you have finished slaying them. Now, if you do not like this set, or you do not have the DLC and do not want to farm this set, then I would recommend hopping into City of Ass and farming up some Burning Spellweave instead. Burning Spellweave is a fantastic set, and while it won't give us as much damage output, it will give us a noticeably higher spell damage stat, which will be great for our offense as well as our defense, and it will be very easy to maintain on this build as well. So super solid, base game, should be easy enough to obtain. And on this, I am using Drain Health Poisons. You can use regular double dot poisons if you want for the most damage pressure possible, but I like the healing from these. Onto the back bar, we are using Rallying Cry with a Sword and Board. I'm sure you know what this set does. It gives us critical chance, maximum magicka, critical chance, and then while we have Battle Spirit, so only in PvP, it will give us 300 weapon spell damage and 1650 critical resistance. This gives us tankiness, this gives us damage, and this gives us crit, a little more on our back bar, so we can crit heal more often. And let me tell you, crit Honor the Deads go slappy, alright? They're nice. They're really, really nice. Now, a lot of people are using this set. I'm sure everyone here knows what it is, what it's used for. You're probably familiar with it. It's not as strong in a group, but it's still very good. If you don't want to use it, if it's too expensive for you, if you just don't feel like dealing with obtaining this set, or you want to run in a big group so you're not going to get the most out of this, or maybe a friend in your group is running this, I would say to just throw on a good back bar spell damage set. I would probably recommend going with Clever Alchemist. The HP that you get from that will allow you to move some additional magicka, or additional attributes into magicka, make you tankier, and then give you just a ludicrous amount of spell damage on demand whenever you pot. It's also craftable, nice and easy to obtain, and I would say is a very, very strong back bar choice here. And again, that is a sword and board. Let's talk about the traits on our weapons. We are using a sharpened staff because we like penetration. It's the best way to get free damage. And also, I like things sharp, pointy, and intimidating looking. Look at that. Isn't it horrifying? Would you want to get stabbed by this staff? No, I don't think you would. On the sword and board, I'm using a defending sword and board and a sturdy shield. We're using a lot of light armor on this because we have to, so that increases our block cost, so we need a lot of sturdy to bring that down. You could stack Impen instead if you want to, because of Nightblades, they're scary, but blocking is nice, so if you like to block, sturdy. If you don't like to block so much, Impen. And I have a increased weapon spell damage enchant on the shield. This helps out with our heals. Whenever you are on the back bar and you are trying to honor the dead back up, just tap a quick light attack, get this buff here, and there you go. If you tap it and hop onto the front bar, you'll get just a little bit of extra damage there as well. Now on to the armor. Monster set, we've got Magma Incarnate. A lot of people have stopped using this because of the changes to Vigor over a year ago now, so I sound like I'm a madman. Some of you might not even know about that. Oh my god. Anyway, magic recovery, stamina recovery, and it gives us armor and weapon spell damage. Very, very nice set. It's very versatile. It gives us tankiness, damage, healing, sustain, literally everything you could ever want or need. And it's fantastic. If you don't want to use this, if you don't have the DLC, I would recommend throwing on Bloodspawn. I know that sounds a little crazy because this is a build meant to kill stuff, but Bloodspawn is base game, pretty easy to obtain, gives us that stamina recovery, which is quite nice, and it makes us very, very tanky and helps us achieve our ultimates quicker. Sometimes having our ultimate faster and more often is just more effective than having it do more damage. So it's a very, very nice balance there. Gallant Chain, we are using one trainee, we like the health, that's pretty self-explanatory. Magma Incarnate again, filling in with Rallying Cry and Draugr on the body. Down to the jewelry, we have 2 Rallying, and we have the Mark and Ring of Majesty. This is my chosen mythic. I like it because it gives me armor and it gives me spell damage. Both of those things I like a whole lot. You could also use Death Dealer's Feet here if you want. They're going to give you relatively the same performance, and I would say it comes down to a matter of either preference or convenience. For one, I don't have Death Dealers. I don't want to farm Death Dealers, so I'm using this, and I like it. I like it quite a lot. Either or works. Let's go ahead and touch on traits and enchantments here. Literally everything is triglyphed. because we want that stat density right now in the meta that we are currently in. On here, everything is weapon spell or spell damage, I mean, and that is infused. I like infused because it just gives us the most damage possible. But I mentioned earlier that I like speed as well. So I personally keep a full set of Swift on me as well because I like to go fast. Look at me go. I'm such a quick boy. I'm so speedy. People have a hard time keeping up with you when you got all this on. Now, obviously, most people probably don't want to keep 2 full sets of jewelry, so I'd say to either pick between full Swift or full infused for the big damage, or to split the difference and go for, say, 2 Swift and 1 infused. 2 Swift will give you a nice 14% movement speed buff, and you'll be very, very quick and not lose out on all the damage. And yeah, when it comes to our armor weights, I have 2 heavy, 1 medium, 4 light, because we want the 511 passive, of course, so we've got the 1 medium in there, a 2 heavy just to make up for the fact that we are wearing a lot of light armor, so we want to get that extra chunk in there where we can. And that should be it for the sets, if I'm not mistaken. Well, that's everything. Let's go ahead and talk about skills. There will be a couple rants in here, so be prepared. First and foremost, the first skill I'm going to rant about, Honor the Dead. This is our burst heal, and it is far more than meets the eye. Let me talk about Templar real quick. Restoring light passive, Mending. Increases the healing effects from your restoring light abilities by up to 12% in proportion to the severity of your target's wounds. The lower your health, the more you get out of healing. Healing anyone who is below 75% health restores 18% of this ability's cost every 2 seconds for 6 seconds. Now, I'm bad at math, but that's around 50%. So, what do those 2 things together mean? They mean only use this when you're about to fucking die, okay? You don't want to use this when you're not below 75% health. That is the hard cutoff point. If you are above 75%, do not touch this fucking button. Do you understand me? Do not press this button. It is wasted. Only use it when you are below 75%, and even then, only use it, I would personally say, when you're below 60, maybe even 50, depending on how frisky the fight you're in is. Because Templar likes to live on the edge. We have a lot of heal over time going on this setup, on Templar in general, and really, you want to push your health bar to the limit. We are a vampire stage 3, so we get tankier the lower our health gets. You want to push that as far as you can and stay on the front bar and do your damage and try to secure those kills, and only hop onto the back bar and press this fucking button when you absolutely have to, okay? Do not spam this. If you have to do 2 or 3 at once, you're probably already dead. Just give up. Sometimes you can get out of the bad situation, but if you are in a situation where you have to spam Honor the Dead, that means one of 2 things. That means 1, you fucked up. You got yourself in a really bad position that you shouldn't be in, and the odds of you getting out of it are relatively low. 2, it could mean you're just being zerged down by 500 people and you were fucked the second they looked at you, and there's no point in bothering trying to stay alive. You're wasting your time, you're wasting theirs. If you find that fun, spam it. Go ahead. You'll live an extra 10 seconds or so. Sometimes it's worth it, I guess. But yeah, Templar rant over. On to our second skill here, Race Against Time. This is our movement speed ability. This adds on top of our other movement speed modifiers here, as well as giving us snare removal and a crit damage buff. We may not have a huge crit chance, but 30% is reasonable, so when we do land a crit, this just makes it hit a little bit harder. Really nice little tip here. If you are using Race Against Time or you have any snare removal, a lot of people, when they get immobilized, say a Dragonite just hit you with talons, they are going to dodge roll to get out of that. Stamina is a very precious resource on a primarily Magicka build. You don't want to run out of it, because if you can't break free or you can't block that nasty in-cap, you will die. So, when you get snared, don't dodge roll. Race Against Time instead. When you get rooted, don't dodge roll. Race Against Time instead. It is very important for your sustain to remember that small thing, because you never know when you're going to need that stamina for something just a little bit more important. Oh, and if you don't want to farm this skill line, or you don't have the DLC that it came from, I don't even know if that's possible these days, but if it is, you could always, of course, just slot in Elusive Mist. It might be a better skill, even with the changes that it has had, but I just don't like it. It feels weird to use for me. But it gives you a whole lot. It absorbs some projectiles while you are moving. It gives you movement speed for 4 seconds, the same movement speed buff. And it also gives you a tanky buff here, giving us major evasion, giving us 20% AoE damage reduction, which is quite nice. And it also procs this passive here, which will give us 300 weapon spell damage after we use it, which is a pretty big benefit to both our healing and our damage. So both of these are very good choices. I just don't like the way that Elusive Mist feels to use these days, but if you like it, then by all means feel free to use it. They're both very good. On to next ability here, Channeled Focus. Very simple, armor buff, sustain buff, and a heal when we're standing inside of it. Inside of it, I'm getting 2,000 heals. Outside of it, I'm getting 700 heals. Pretty self-explanatory. If you are stationary for a moment, stand inside of this to get that a bit of additional healing. Extended Ritual, a very important skill this patch because there are a lot of people using more dots than I can fucking count. We want to get rid of those. This will cleanse off 5 of those, drop a big circle on the ground that heals you while you stand in it, and if you have friends, they can use Purify, getting rid of all their negative effects and also getting a big heal. Very nice ability to have, and I would not replace this for anything. Do not use the damage morph. That is dumb. This is the right one. This is the only one you should be using in PvP. Understand? Okay, glad we got that taken care of. And then Living Dark. This is a very, very powerful heal. But I do want to talk about the alternative, which is, of course, Resolving Vigor. Now, a lot of people in the current patches, for the past year now, have been saying that Vigor is just the bee's fucking knees now because it's the best heal in the game, and it's got a armor buff. Now, when it comes to raw healing, Living Dark is actually much stronger here. I don't feel like doing math, but for you guys, I will. Let's talk about how Living Dark works. It gives us 2,293, this is all unbuffed, mind you, healing every half a second when we're getting hit by people, okay? That's for 12 seconds, so 2 ticks per second. So that's going to be 2,293 times 24. That comes out to 55,000 healing over 12 seconds, okay? Now look at Vigor, 17,300 over 5. If we make that, let's see, 75, 352, okay, and then we multiply that by 2, and then, oh god, okay, wait, there's 2 more seconds in there we have to account for. Okay, wait, so what, 17, 352 divided by 5, alright, we'll multiply that by 2, alright, now we're gonna add 17, 352 by 2. Bam. Alright, you couldn't see any of that, but the math shows that over 12 seconds, Vigor will heal you for 41,000 health versus the 55,000 that Living Dark is going to heal you for. I don't know if that means much to any of you, but to me that means resource effectiveness. To get the same healing from Living Dark, or to get the same healing from Vigor that you would from Living Dark, you're going to need to cast Vigor a total of 3 times. That's a lot of times. That is 9,000 stamina versus just under 4,000 magicka. So, yeah, the armor buff from Vigor is very nice to have, but having to maintain that stamina and have a weaker heal on top of it sometimes just doesn't do it for me. If you can have both, you're in a perfect world, and it's nice to have both, but we just don't have the bar space on this build to do that. So I have chosen Living Dark. You can choose Resolving Vigor if you want, and then swap in a different monster set like I mentioned earlier. It will work, both are good, and it is really personal preference, it is up to you. But I also would like to say that Living Dark also gives us our spell damage buff from Templar passives when we use it, which is nice. Where is that one at? It's in here somewhere. It's this one. This one right here, which is very nice to have. We like that spell damage. And it also slows our attackers. Again, facilitating our speed is key mindset. On to our backbar ultimate. I'm using Spell Wall. Spell Wall is my favorite ultimate in the game. I made a YouTube short talking about why I love it so much, and it speaks for itself. This is good both offensively and defensively, for several reasons. It's one, if you're being hit by 9 people, you can use this to free up your ability to move, right? In a lot of situations, you don't want to move out into the open because you know you're going to be hit by a lot of people and die. Well, if you have Spell Wall, you should be able to move freely. You should have a moment to get some heavy attacks off, get your resources back up. It's very, very helpful defensively, but it also works offensively. If you don't have your meteor ready to go, because of course we're using meteor on the other bar, we'll talk about that in a minute, then you could just pop a Spell Wall, so that way you are not taking as much damage for this 7 seconds, and use those 7 seconds to go absolutely Ape Escape style on someone's forehead. And usually that'll work. And then secondly, if you are being attacked by any ranged builds, 9 times out of 10 I've noticed most players in Cyrodiil, when you pop this, they don't have the forethought to stop shooting you, and they just reflect everything back at themselves and then die. So it's very, very nice. If you are being shot by a toxic barrage, pop this real quick, and guess what? You just secured a free kill. You didn't even have to try. Pop the Spell Wall, hit him with the execute, he'll kill himself. It's great. If you don't want to use Spell Wall though, you could use Temporal Guard. I don't like Temporal Guard that much, but it is an option. Onto the front bar, we are using Power of the Light. This skill has gone through so many ups, so many downs, that I don't even know if it's still good anymore, damage-wise. I think it is. Sometimes it hits pretty damn hard, but primarily this is giving us our second armor debuff, gives us another 3000 armor shred on the bad guys, and it also gives us a delayed burst effect. If it hits big, it hits big, and sometimes you will watch people disintegrate from this ability, and it's quite nice. It's pretty cheap too on the stam, so it doesn't really hurt our sustain very much at all. So it's good in a lot of different ways. Then we are of course using Aurora Javelin. This is our stun. It goes through block, it ignores armor, so it hits harder than you would expect most times for such a low tool tipping ability, and it also knocks people back, which sets up some pretty fun times every now and then. You're fighting in a tower, you're fighting on a bridge, sometimes you can knock people off, get those fall damage kills, and it just makes you so happy. Your heart just, it just fills with glee, with the joy of a 10-year-old child on Christmas morning. It's the best feeling ever. But anyway, super powerful ability. Then Elemental Susceptibility. This is our primary debuff here. This is going to apply Major Breach, shredding armor by 6000, and also applies a lot of really, really nasty debuffs. Burning, which is a damage over time. Chilled, which does something. And Concussed, which I believe makes enemies take 5% increased damage. So, again, just another percentage damage modifier on top of the ones we already have. Very, very potent ability. And keep in mind that every time this applies those status effects, they all do immediate damage, and that damage will be increased by Draugr. You're gonna get 3 ticks of Draugr every time this updates, so that's a free 1000 damage for you right there. Radiant Glory, I'm sure if you've played the video game, you know what this is. This is the laser beam. This is the one that always kills you, and then you complain about it. We all do. I'm using Radiant Glory because, again, I play alone, so having that additional healing that you get from this one. Wait, is that the one? Dealing damage, deals up to, you restore magicka based on the target's missing health. Yeah, there we go. Okay, making sure. I'm using the healing morph because sometimes it's nice to have the heal because you can start beaming somebody and not have to worry about yourself dying because you are receiving some health back. It's very, very nice, especially because it hits so damn hard. You could go for the other morph if you want to, just to push that raw damage, but 20% isn't a massive, massive amount of damage. It is noticeable, but it's not make or break. I like the heal, I like the utility. Both are good. You pick. And then our spammable. I'm using Crushing Shock. Now there are reasons we are using Crushing Shock, and I will go ahead and talk to you about those reasons right now. This is not fully buffed, again, mind you, but with these buffs that we have right now, we are looking at 3,291 damage 3 separate times. So that is coming out to about just under 10,000 damage. When we do have our second buff up, that is going to be over 10,000. So it's pretty solid for an instant cast ranged attack. But keep in mind that this is also benefiting from Draugr because it is 3 separate instances of damage. It is going to proc Draugr 3 times, okay? That is factored into the tooltip here. It is increasing the damage of this significantly. And again, we do not have all of our buffs right now, so that makes it very powerful. Another amazing thing about this ability is the fact that it has all 3 primary elemental damages in it, in direct damage format, which means that for every one of those, it has a chance to proc that status effect, a rather high chance to proc that status effect because it is direct damage. Do you know what that means? That means every time you cast this, you are going to get 3 instances of damage and potentially up to 3 additional instances of damage, which will all be affected by Draugr, which I don't know if you're counting, but that's 330, 330, 330, 330, 330, 330. That's like a bunch of damage. That's like 2,000 right there, free. You don't even have to try. It's just free, and it's nice, and you can spam this, and it's really, really good. It also interrupts people that are rezzing, which is nice. We like that. Lastly, talk about our ultimate Ice Comet. This rips people's faces off. The way to set up the combo, very, very simple. You just come over here to this big fat guy. Go ahead and put your debuffs on, poke him a few times, drop the meteor, which I don't have, throw the javelin to stun so they take the full damage from the meteor, and just about anybody who is not a super tank is going to disappear. Alright, it's that simple. Start with this, into this, couple of these, one of these, and then one of these guys. That's gonna go boom, and they should die, most of the time. And it's really that simple. A great offensive combo. I'm sure you've died to it a couple times out there. There are people that use it because it's so good. And yeah, that's it for the skills. Lastly, we'll pop into the CP. I finally have enough CP to actually get 4 different blue slottables. So I'm going to talk about what I do. I am using, I guess I should just show it. How do I? Oh, I can't go to the champion bar because I'm in combat. All right, we're going to wait 2 seconds for this fat oaf to stop being mad at me. There we go. All right, go to our champion bar. I am using Focused Mending. This is our healing. This is important. This is going to be our Rune, our Living Dark, and our Honor the Dead. Very, very big. Then I have 1 single damage slottable CP. I'm using Master at Arms for direct damage. That is going to be our light attacks, our other thing, our Crushing Shock, our Meteor, all those. Very nice to have. And then I'm using 2 damage mitigation CP. I'm using direct damage and single target damage. That's Duelist Rebuff and Ironclad. That's going to be 12% mitigation on all the nastiest damage abilities in the game. Primarily Nightblades, who are going to hurt you the worst. This is going to mitigate their incaps, their spec bows, the little thing where they slash you. I forgot what it's called. Surprise attack, that thing. Yeah, the other one is the one people are using, but it doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying. So yeah, I like to be very, very tanky on this, having that extra defense. We have enough damage, but if you want to go ahead and throw a second offensive slottable in, then go for Deadly Aim for that additional 6% damage on our most important stuff. And you'll watch people disappear. And then for the red CP, I am using Celerity. Again, speed is key, do not forget it. I am using Relentlessness. This is very nice. Every time we get stunned, we get 3 seconds of major protection, giving us 10% damage mitigation. Then I'm using Pain's Refuge. Again, like I said before, there are a lot of dots and negative effects in this patch, and sometimes you can't cleanse them all off, so when you got 3 people on top of you, dotting you down like a dog, this comes in very, very handy. And then I am also using Sustained by Suffering. I personally am using Sustained by Suffering because I haven't been the best at managing my sustain lately. Not as much as I used to, at least. But I feel like you could swap it out for something else if you wanted to be a little tankier. My favorite, and one that is very slept on, is Juggernaut. This is very, very nice because it's another 5% overall damage mitigation to all sources while you have crowd control immunity. When you are in a big fight, you're going to be stunned on cooldown very, very often, so this is going to be active most of the time. So that's just a free 5% mitigation. It's very nice. It's very, very nice to have. I'd say pick between that and Sustained by Suffering, depending on how you feel with your own personal sustain. Tankiness is nice, sustain is nice. Or you could go in for health. I don't really like the health. I don't think it's necessary. I like Juggernaut better. But yeah, I think that's it. I think that's the build. That's the build, guys. We did it. Oh, hi. So I just realized after I finished recording that I forgot to talk about consumables, and I always do that. And it's kind of important on this build, so real quick, I'm just going to mention that yes, I use Orzorga's Smoked Bear Haunch as my food. It gives me big health and big recoveries for both of my recoveries. It is very expensive, however, so if you do not want to dish out the dough for this, then you can use the whatever the other one is called. It's going to be on screen here. I'm going to put it in, hopefully I remember. The Jewels of Misrule, that's what it's called. It's basically the same thing, but slightly gimped. Still very, very good. I also am using Alliance Spell Droughts because they're so easy to get a hold of, and we do need these buffs. I do not have a major sorcery or prophecy buff in my skills that I'm using, so we need to get it from here. A lot of people like to use tripods. Well, I do keep tripods on me at all times because you never know when you're going to be in so much danger that you just need to use a tripod, so I do keep those with me. Also, all of these are going to be shown how to make them on screen as well. So yeah, I keep some of these on me, and then I also do keep essences of detection on me at all times because Nightblades are pesky, and I don't really have a much better way of dealing with them on this build, so we use Essence of Detection. It gives us protection, it gives us our sorcery buff, and it gives us back our magicka and some recovery. So yeah, we keep those on us. And then lastly, cheeky invisibility potion. You know, you never know when you might want to skedaddle from a bad situation. I do keep some of these on me. You could just use the red ones, the red alliance ones. They give you invisibility as well. But I'd say just keep some invisibility potions on you, especially if you're alone, because sometimes you get yourself into a situation you just don't want to be in. So if you can find an opportunity to get away from that situation, then you should. But yeah, that's really it for consumables. Poisons, we'll just go ahead and hover over these so you can see the crafting recipes here. Double damage, double dot's always a really, really good one. Very, very, very ouchy. A lot of uptime on this. And lastly, the one that I use mostly, drain health, healing, damage. What else could you want? But yeah, sorry about that. I'll do better next time, I promise. It's just been so long. Anyway, bye. Okay, I got through it. I was kind of scared there for a bit. So yeah, I hope that you learned something. I hope my rants and tips and stuff were not unwanted. And if they were unwanted, well, that's too damn bad because my ADHD brain has a hard time focusing on a single thing at once, and I have to get the thoughts out of there. If you're going to try this build, let me know. If you're not going to try this build, why are you here? Yeah. And that's it. I'm going to go ahead and skedaddle now. Thank you guys for watching this far, and I hope you have a great day. Goodbye.
Get me to the altar.